Yo, what's going on, y'all? This your boy Teddy Blackman. I'm back with another video. And today we're gonna talk about Pokemon and who was the best starter. And we're gonna go through each generation and talk about the starters. And maybe we're gonna go through each generation and discuss like the legendary. So we're gonna get about two videos from each generation of Pokemon. One about the starters and then one about the legendaries. And then I guess included in the legendaries, we'll do like quasi legendaries. Like in Generation 1, a quasi legendary would be probably like Dragonite. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who you could find, but was still rare technically. You know what I'm saying? We'll get into all that later on. This is a video about starters, and obviously Generation 1, which was probably the best team of starters in my opinion. Now this could be a little bit of biasness added into it. Also, the nostalgia is really hitting me in the feels right now. Just looking at these covers, I haven't seen this in like years. But yeah, obviously Pikachu, yellow version, Charizard, red version, who's Charmander's evolution, Blastoise, who was Squirtle's evolution, and Venusaur, who was Bulbasaur's evolution. And over here in America, we didn't get the green version, only got red, blue, and then a year later we got yellow. Obviously in China they got all the versions. They make the game, so obviously they get all the versions. I think I read that on the website Game Freak, which was linked to Nintendo a while ago, that America was only allowed to release 3 versions of this. Obviously they went with Pikachu and his popularity, and then they chose red and blue because it resembled the American flag, which is red, white, and blue. So that's why they chose Blastoise and Charizard and not the Venusaur. Crazy situation. But yeah, a little tidbit if you didn't know that. So Generation 1, and again, yellow version came out a year later, so Pikachu was really like, just a later on starter. He didn't start off a starter, even though you can catch him fairly early on in the game with these other versions. I didn't play the green version, so again, we'll probably have to miss out on that. But Bulbasaur is my favorite starter. Also, probably, I want to say my second favorite Pokemon of all time, besides Gengar. Yeah, I think Bulbasaur is second. So that's a little biasness for me. Now we're gonna get into obviously all of them. So the more popular pick always was Charmander. And aside from it being the more popular pick, I want to say, now this is biasness aside, I want to say that this is probably the more smart pick too. Now obviously with you, as a kid playing the game for the first time, you don't know what you're in store for, so you don't know, you're not making smart picks and all of this situation. You just want to play the game. But once you play the game, realizing like maybe picking Charmander was the smart decision, is the smartest option, because one, there's not a lot of fire Pokemon in this game to begin with. Now obviously I'm more of a critical thinker now, and you're thinking like, wow, you need to pick something that is going to be hard to gain access to, so you don't have to gain access to it. I always pick Bulbasaur, but however, there's a bajillion grass Pokemon in this game. But I'll get to why I used to always pick Bulbasaur, and picking Bulbasaur is a smart decision as well, especially starting off the game because of the gym leaders. But we'll get to that in a few seconds. Now obviously, second most popular pick was Squirtle. Now you didn't have access to water Pokemon until you were like a little bit well into the maybe middle portion of the game, and you started to get like fishing rods, or you started to be able to surf and stuff like that. So picking a water Pokemon to begin with was always like also another smart decision. Water and fire, because it was so hard to gain access to them earlier on in the game when you might have needed them. Like I said, Pikachu, I forget, but this is Viridian Forest, which is the first section of the game you go into after you leave Pallet Town. You could catch a Pikachu. Now you couldn't catch a Bulbasaur, but you could easily get like maybe if you had the red version, you can catch like Oddish. And Oddish isn't as good as Bulbasaur, but he's a grass Pokemon. Blue version, you could catch like, I don't know, maybe Bellsprout or something like that. There were other options, albeit not as strong. but other options that you could catch that you could kind of make up for not having a grass starter or not having an electric starter. You know what I'm saying? But it took a while before you can make up before having a fire starter. Like, I don't think you start seeing fire Pokemon until like you got like your 7th badge, and it's only 8 gym leaders. You know what I'm saying? Now I used to pick Bulbasaur because one, he was always my favorite. Grass, the whips, you know, the Bulba, you know, like just a little dinosaur frog situation, whatever he is, pretty cool. But when you're dealing with the gym leaders, this was a pretty smart pick as well, because the first 2 leaders is Brock and Misty, so that's rock and water. He does well against both. There's no either or. If you pick Charmander, you'll do good against Brock and you'll struggle against Misty. If you pick Squirtle, you'll kill Brock, but you'll struggle against Misty. Bulbasaur is like that common median. He does well against both. And obviously Pikachu, ineffective against Brock, but he'll kill Misty. But I guess Brock is kind of like one of those situations where if you caught like the other Pokemon and just train them up a little bit, you can pretty much handle Rock. You know what I'm saying? You have to be strategic about it, because again, there's no water Pokemon and just absolutely maul them and destroy them unless you started with Squirtle, and then you'll just breeze through Brock. And then I guess if you caught like a Pikachu in the wild, maybe like a Caterpie or Weedle or whatever, and grew them up a little bit, you wouldn't struggle as much against Misty. Yeah, so get into like the gym leaders. But before I get all the way into them, I know I touched on Brock and Misty. I want to say that also this group of starters is probably the best, because if you notice, and somebody could correct me if I'm wrong, if you notice, this is the only generation of Pokemon games where the starters are actually like the cover Pokemon. Going forward after this, I want to say all the cover Pokemon are the legendaries in said games. Each generation after this is the only generation of Pokemon games where the starters were actually on the cover. And I thought about it and I said, you know what if the yellow version had Zapdos on it, the red version had Moltres, and the blue version had Articuno, and then the green version, you know, I don't think there's no green that you could am I missing, because I think the only other legendary in the game is Mew and Mewtwo. Now Mewtwo being on the cover of a Pokemon game would have been crazy, you know what I'm saying, if they would have did like a purple version or a pink version or something, like a mauve, a lavender version or something like that, you know what I'm saying. Like, having Mewtwo on the cover would have been giant crazy, you know what I'm saying. But I was thinking, I was like, that probably would have been cool, but it just hits harder because these people, they were so popular, and people didn't know like Zapdos and Moltres and Articuno just yet, but they knew Pikachu. Everybody knew Pikachu. Pika, you know what I'm saying? And you knew the Char, and you knew the Squirtle Squad, and you knew the Bulbas, you know what I'm saying? So, now obviously my favorite one, Bulbasaur, is probably the least popular out of this group, for sure. But he's super effective early on, which is all the starters to a degree. We touched on Brock and Misty. I think third was Lieutenant Surge with electricity. So obviously, if you had anybody other than Squirtle, you probably was going to do pretty good. Charmander, you would have to have other Pokemon, maybe catch you a little rock or something to set the tone, or to be able to take damage while you could use the potions and all of that type of stuff. But Lieutenant Surge, electric Pokemon, they kind of discredited them in Pokemon. They not really like threats and none of that for real. Fourth was Erica, and I think Erica, I don't even know if that's her name, was Grass, which is, if you picked anybody but again Squirtle, you're gonna breeze through it. Obviously she has like Grass with the poison hybrid. So for me, when I had Bulbasaur, obviously I wasn't effective against them, but I also couldn't get poison. That's what she like to do, is like to poison you. Now obviously if you pick Charmander, you would breeze through this like, you know, easy like Sunday morning. Pikachu as well, because they did good against Grass. Again, Squirtle, I guess if you started off with Squirtle, he really is the one. Like once you get past Brock, there's just really like it just goes down from there. His value instantly goes down. You know what I'm saying? Bulbasaur, he's good against the first two, and then he's immune to the fourth because she's the fourth one. Charizard's pretty much the strongest pick here because he can get you through Brock. He's weak against Misty. He'll get you through Surge. He'll tear up the grass one. I think Koga is next with the fighting. Is it fighting with him? Again, this one is pretty much is good. You're good to go with no matter what starter you have. So we can't critique the starters here. Obviously, when it comes to fighting Pokemon, you're really good to go with Blastoise, Pikachu. Maybe you evolve him into Raichu by now. You won't have Blastoise. You'll probably have Wartortle. You'll probably have Ivysaur. You'll probably have Charmeleon. But this is the fifth. That's the fifth gem. So this is also where the beginning of the end for your starter being dominant, if they were dominant, of them being dominant, because they're going to stop. This is where it starts to tremble down, if I remember correctly, because next up is Sabrina, and I think that's Psychic. And no matter who you start with, you're going to struggle. You must go get you a Ghost Pokemon. Ghost or other Psychics, maybe Fairy or whatever. I used to be a super big fan of Clefairy, so I had a Clefable in my lineup for sure. This is like super the beginning of the end as far as like your starter being like maybe the dominant force that you thought he was going to be. Now, once you get past Sabrina, I think Blaine is next. So Blaine is fire, and this is where you have to go to Cinnabar Island, so you have access to these stronger. You're going to encounter water Pokemon on your way there. So if you didn't start with Squirtle, don't fear. You're going to be able to catch your Staryus and your Starmies, your Tentacools, your Tentacruels, your Dugongs. Maybe run into a Jinx or somebody that has some type of strong water move. I remember playing it as a kid, and my Clefairy knew Hydro Pump or something like that. I think it was Metronome, Hydro Pump. It was a water move, and I think a psychic move or something. Because Clefairy can learn anything. It's really a cheesy, tanky Pokemon if you know how to do it. But yeah, so that would, again, if you started with Squirtle, your Squirtle is still of. This is where he's of use. Brock and Blaine, and obviously Giovanni, who was the last gym leader, even though he's in the first city. I never understood that, but I guess since they want you to double back around to go to the Pokemon League, it makes it why wouldn't it be the stop? So Giovanni is what, normal? Correct me if I'm wrong. He's normal or he's ground? I think he's ground. Again, outside of Pikachu, I think Pikachu's useless here. Everybody else, you'll breeze through Giovanni. Giovanni is even though his Pokemon are high level, he's probably the easiest gym leader, even easier than Brock. You know what I'm saying? He's just trash. He doesn't bring nothing like to the a couple of Nidokings, a Nidoking, Nidoqueen, maybe a Rhydon or something like that. And for the life of me, I guess from the TV show, I used to always thought he had a Persian, but yeah, it just wasn't that. And then you go to the Pokemon League. Now, by the time you make it to the Pokemon League, your lineup should be crazy stacked and strong. I'm not sure if you'll have a legendary by now, but you may. I cannot remember off the top of my head. It's been so long. But yeah, all Bucks, I don't know. I don't remember none of their names. I just know the first one is probably Ice. One of them is Ghost. You have Lance with the Dragons, but he's the fourth one. And then you have to fight your rival who has beat the Elite and became the champion before you. And they have a nice lineup. So maybe your starter will come back around to being useful when you fight your rival. And maybe even through it. Because if you fight Ice, if you start off with Fire, and electric. Fire and electric will do good against ice. Water will not, and Lord knows Bulbasaur does not. That is his strongest weakness, is ice. Do not throw him out there. Put him in the back of the lineup. If you went to Cinnabar Island, you should have been able to catch some type of fire Pokemon, even though there's not a lot of fire Pokemon. I don't think you have to make it to Cinnabar Island. You can go somewhere, maybe get you a Rapidash, maybe get you a Magmar, which is what I used to do at that said scenario. Maybe get you like a Moltres or something. I think you could get the legendaries before you go to the Pokemon League. I think you can get them, and if you could, you would have to have like a balanced lineup each type. Again, it's been so many years. If I could remember my lineup, it would have been Bulbasaur, Clefairy, it would have been Gengar, obviously Ghastly, it would have been Mewtwo, it would have been Dragonite, and it would have been I want to say probably maybe Magmar, maybe, I can't remember the sixth person, but just something even that you could use in each scenarios. Sometimes you're going to have to lean on one person for an entire battle, and you'll have to just throw out the other Pokemon to take damage while you're reviving and healing the affected people, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, all in all, I feel like the smartest decision would have been picking Charmander. Now, biasness aside, I think it's Charmander. Biasness not aside, Bulbasaur. Now, the tidbit about the yellow version is like, even though you Pikachu was a starter, you do get to get all the starters in the yellow version. You get Squirtle, you get Charmander, and you get Bulbasaur. Now, granted, you get them a little bit like further along each line. Like, you don't get them all at once. You just go through the story. By the time you get them, you know, a lot of your other Pokemon would be so high, at least mine was so higher level, that I wouldn't feel like training these guys up, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, I would take the Bulbasaur. Obviously, I would take the Charmander. But I didn't really like, Squirtle. I done had something by then probably. Pikachu, I'm not a big fan of electricity. But yeah, Generation 1 wise, I really feel like Charmander is the safe choice. Is the best choice. Because there's not a lot of fire Pokemon in this game to begin with. You know what I'm saying? You have your fair share of water and grass, and you have your fair share of electricity, even though that takes a little while to get to. The Voltorb, they are actually on Cinnabar Island as well. The Voltorbs, the Electabuzzes, Electrode, Magnemite, Magneton, like all those type of guys. So it just takes a long time to get to them, and by the time you get to them, you don't really need them no more. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it couldn't really go wrong. But my favorite was always Bulbasaur, but I'm thinking the best starter was probably Charmander for sure. He covered a lot of ground, and you could build. He's a strong foundation to build around. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could literally find like all the other types around fire. Catch Pikachu, like I said, Pikachu first section of the game. Catch a grass Pokemon first section of the game, and you get water like a little bit. Like, once you start hitting the SSN or something like that, which I think is after Misty, somebody gives you an old rod, which only catches the magic carp, obviously, but then you start getting like the good rod, super rod, and all that. So yeah, it's just that's just the gist of it. So yeah, long video, but I like it. I like talking about stuff like this. It's good content, and like I said, I'm not sure what the schedule's gonna look like, but I'm gonna do one for each generation, starters and then legendary, and just go from there. Like, share, comment, subscribe. Definitely looking forward to some comments. But yeah, stay tuned for the next video. Thank y'all for tuning in. This is Teddy Blackman, and I am out of here.